Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a massive, fundamental shift in the medical device market that, honestly, most people are completely missing. We are zeroing in on exactly how AI is radically changing spine surgery. But listen, this isn't just your standard clinical update. We're specifically focusing on AI 和改变脊椎手术的市场商机与决策. That is, how AI is totally reshaping market opportunities and rewriting the rules for how purchasing decisions are actually made in healthcare. If you want to know where the future of medical technology is heading, you absolutely have to pay attention to what's going down in the surgical suite right now.
To really grasp where we're going, we kind of need to look at where we've been. Picture a factory floor, say 15 years ago. What did you have? Isolated machines, zero data integration, and just massive, costly inefficiencies. Well, take a hard look at today's modern operating room, because it suffers from the exact same structural problem. We've got these incredibly advanced but completely isolated legacy scopes that produce zero data integration. What finally bridged that gap in manufacturing was ITOT Rongol, the convergence of information technology and operational technology. And guess what? That exact same revolution is knocking on the doors of our hospitals today.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to cover the operating room revolution, break down the reusable endoscope problem, explore the 3 layers of surgical AI, look at this incredible Southeast Asia advantage, and finally, figure out the new rules of market decision.
Starting off with Section 1, the operating room revolution and this massive shift in architecture.
We've got to start framing the surgical suite a little differently. It is no longer just a sterile medical environment, It's an operational system that is actively undergoing its own industrial revolution, driven completely by IT/OT rogi. In plain English, this means getting operational technology, your physical machines, your sensors, your surgical tools, to actually talk meaningfully with information technology systems. When the manufacturing sector solved this exact puzzle, they wiped out massive inefficiencies, secured their data, and literally saved billions of dollars. That same convergence is hitting the operating room right now, and the implications are just staggering.
Moving to Section 2, the reusable endoscope problem, where we expose the real bottleneck.
Before we get to the flashy AI solutions, we have to talk about what's holding hospitals back. And brace yourself, because this is a hard truth. Studies show that over 70% of cross-infection events associated with endoscopic procedures are caused by insufficient cleaning and sterilization of reusable scopes. 70%. These are beautifully engineered devices, for sure, but they're built around a fundamental constraint that we just don't need to accept anymore.
The root of this whole mess is the reprocessing cycle. Think about it. After every single surgery, a reusable scope has to go through sterilization, then inspection, and finally reassembly. It takes a ton of time, it inevitably introduces human error, and it carries this lingering, irreducible contamination risk. Because of this tedious, time-consuming cycle, just waiting for a sterilized scope acts as a physical, operational constraint. It literally dictates how many surgeries a hospital can physically schedule and pull off in a single day.
And this brilliantly illustrates the core industrial failure of these devices. Reusable endoscopes are basically legacy, closed-loop systems. They require all this manual maintenance, they yield absolutely zero data output to help improve the next surgery, and here's the real kicker, every single sterilization cycle actually degrades the optical quality of the lens, so you're paying top dollar for something that gets slightly worse every single time you use it.
Section 3, 3 layers of surgical AI. Let's look beyond the surface.
So, how do we actually fix this? Well, when we talk about AI-assisted spine surgery, we aren't just talking about a cool robot arm holding a tool. We're talking about 3 distinct layers of AI inference that are finally commercially viable for spinal procedures: real-time image analysis, the learning loop, and the IT/OT convergence tension.
Let's break down Layer 1. Real-time AI inference analyzes the raw video stream instantly as it happens. It's flagging anatomical landmarks, things like nerve roots and intervertebral discs. It's monitoring tissue tension and can even spot the earliest signals of bleeding way before they're visible to the naked eye. For spinal procedures, where success is quite literally measured in millimeters, this takes a massive cognitive load off the surgeon during the most stressful, high-stakes maneuvers of the operation.
Now, what's really fascinating is Layer 2, the learning loop. This mimics industrial IoT architecture flawlessly. Edge sensors collect standardized data during the surgery. That anonymized data flows upstream to the cloud to train better models, and then those upgraded models get pushed right back down to the operating room. Thanks to this loop, every single surgery generates the standardized data needed to make the very next surgery even safer and way more precise.
But here is the massive, totally counterintuitive irony of this whole setup. 怕和是你的事情.
disposable endoscopes actually produce vastly superior training data compared to those expensive reusable ones. Why? Because disposable scopes don't suffer from that optical degradation caused by repeated sterilization. The image quality is crisp and perfectly consistent every single time. And as we know, in the world of AI, consistency in training data is everything. The choice that eliminates patient infection risk turns out to be the exact same choice that supercharges AI learning efficiency.
Which brings us to layer 3, and this involves a really critical tension between Bianyuan, edge computing, and cloud computing. Edge inference gives you that sweet low latency and keeps data safely locked down on site at the hospital, but it requires some complex over-the-air update management. Cloud inference, on the other hand, gives you massive computing power, but it introduces dangerous network dependencies and incredibly strict data sovereignty risks. Securing a hybrid channel that balances both is an incredible challenge, and it's something hospital IT departments are being forced to tackle head-on right now.
Let's pivot to Section 4, the Southeast Asia Advantage. This is a perfect storm for market entry.
Now that we've got a handle on the tech, let's look at the highly lucrative market opportunity forming right before our eyes. The raw numbers here are just absolutely undeniable. The global minimally invasive spine surgery market is growing at a very healthy 7% annually. But the Asia-Pacific segment? It is surging at an 11.2% compound annual growth rate, literally nearly twice the global average. And Southeast Asia specifically is the highest growth pocket within that massive number.
But why Southeast Asia, right? Well, the infrastructure gap there is actually a massive advantage. Most mid-tier private hospitals in Southeast Asia don't have those gigantic central sterile processing departments you find in the West. For them, reprocessing a reusable scope isn't just an annoyance, it's a hard physical operational bottleneck. Because of that, adopting a disposable AI endoscope is an urgent, necessary operational fix to schedule more surgeries rather than just some fancy clinical luxury upgrade. Let's see how this builds a massive business advantage through the regulatory cascade. If a device has US FDA clearance, it can slide right into an abridged pathway for Singapore's Health Sciences Authority. Then, that Singapore approval acts as a powerful reference for incredibly fast, expedited reviews by Malaysia's Medical Device Authority and the Thai FDA. This sequential cascade means you can get full regulatory access to 3 major Southeast Asian markets in a highly compressed 12 to 18-month window. It's wildly fast.
Plus, the competitive window in Southeast Asia is genuinely wide open today. The big legacy incumbent brands have really deep roots in North America and Europe, but they have surprisingly thin relationships when it comes to key opinion leaders, specifically within the Southeast Asian spine subspecialty. First mover advantage to lock down distributor networks in this region is sitting right there for the taking, in a way it simply won't be a few years from now.
And our final section, Section 5, New Rules of Market Decision and the Changing Buyer Profile.
This whole IT/OT convergence thing is completely upending the traditional medical device sales playbook. I really want you to rethink the entire procurement process. Historically, selling a medical device was basically a conversation between a distributor and a hospital purchasing department. But with AI-connected surgical tools bridging IT and OT, who actually holds the purse strings now? The answer has fundamentally changed.
So, here is the absolute game changer. Distributors can no longer just rely on good logistics networks. To win, they now have to secure passionate buy-in from the eGen Linkso, KOL, the spine surgeon key opinion leader, to champion the clinical benefits, while simultaneously proving their architecture can pass the incredibly strict network checks of the hospital's IT security officer. If a distributor can't speak both the language of clinical outcomes and network cybersecurity fluently, they are going to lose the sale.
The source material leaves us with this incredibly powerful insight drawn from decades of industrial transformations. Every major digital wave is led by the engineers and channel partners who understood the architecture way before the market did, not by the ones who sat around waiting for the market to explain it to them. The winners, every single time, are the early movers.
The operating room is just at the very beginning of its digital transformation, and the window for that first mover advantage, especially in high-growth markets like Southeast Asia, is closing fast. In 3 to 5 years, AI-assisted disposable endoscopes won't be some cool novelty. They will be the absolute standard of care in spine surgery. So my final question to you is this: when that day comes, will your name be associated with introducing it, or will you just be following the pack? Keep learning, stay focused, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.